Good morning, Year 11. I hope you're well and having a lovely day. Please could you write the date and title? The title is Poetry Part B, Love After Love. For your do now, I would like you to do these two tasks. Firstly, what is the main purpose or message of this poem? And secondly, write down as many quotes as you can remember. So for the do now, please don't look at the poem, just try and answer these questions from memory. So pause the video to do that now. Okay, so as you should be well aware by now, the poetry exam has two parts. You've got part A, which is a comparison of a known poem from your cluster with an unseen poem in relation to a theme or idea set out in the question. And that's worth 45 minutes and it's worth 20 marks. Then you've got part B, which is what we're going to be looking at today. That's where you write about another poem from memory. It will also link to the theme or idea from part A. You have 30 minutes to do that, and it's once again worth 20 marks. So, as I mentioned, we'll be focusing on part B today. So, in terms of your planning, I recommend spending between 5 and 10 minutes planning and 20 and 25 minutes writing. I'm a firm believer in investing your time in planning. If you plan properly, the essay or the answer will pretty much write itself. What you lose potentially in planning time, you gain back because you've done a lot of the thinking already, so you're just physically getting it down on paper rather than writing and thinking at the same time. So I'm a big believer in planning out your answers. Top level answers always have a detailed plan. I've never read a grade 9 answer, a really high level answer, that doesn't have some sort of plan, at least for these types of questions. So this is a process you can follow. First step, as you should be well aware, again, you always read the question and highlight or underline keywords, and if you want, annotate with key ideas. So as we talked about yesterday for the question for tri-weekly feedback, by missing out the word increasing, the answer will never be as good as an answer that focuses on the actual question. So I can't stress enough how important it is that you are underlining, highlighting the keywords from the question. Otherwise, right from the start, you're capping yourself at a lower mark than you could have got because you're not answering the question. Even if you're not sure how to answer that specific question, if you've at least made an attempt at it, you're going to get a better mark. So really important, you're answering the specific question. Your next step is writing a list of poems you could potentially pick. So it's very, very unlikely that the question will only lend itself to one poem, even if it seems that way at the start. They're designed to be broad, to have typically, I'm not generalizing, but as typically in the past, they lend themselves to 3 or 4 poems. So you want to think about which poems could you pick, and of those poems, which do you feel strongest about, but also not just what you're confident about, what poem would help you build a strong answer. Then, once you've thought about your shortlist, you're then going to select a poem that will help you build that answer and that you feel confident writing about. And your final step, which is really important, please don't skip it, is planning your structure. So we'll talk more about what that means in a moment. So please make sure you have those 4 steps clearly in your mind. I've uploaded the poetry crib sheet, the support sheet, and all this information is on that sheet. Success criteria, once again, is on your support sheet. You need to have well-chosen quotes or evidence from the text. You need to analyse language, form and structure. You need to use subject terminology in a consistent manner. And the final one is the one we've really been focusing on recently. It's developing critical style. So that's talking about having an informed personal response and demonstrating perceptive understanding that underpins your answer. So that's all about building an argument, putting forward your point of view. What's your perspective in relation to that question? What's your own personal response? And that will get you into the higher bands. Okay, so now we're going to have a go. Please can you write down this question as a new subheading? Explore another poem from your anthology which demonstrates a positive relationship. Pause the video to copy it down now. So we're on to step 1. Please could you highlight or underline what do you think are the key words in this question, or the key word. So the key word is of course positive. You don't want to talk about negative relationships, and I'd also think it's worthwhile jotting down a few ideas of what positive means. So please do that now. So the connotations of positive, beneficial, constructive, optimistic, joyful, these are some ideas you may have written down, and these ideas will help guide your planning and your thinking. And next step is thinking about some poems you could talk about. So Bright Star, Now, Morning Song and Love After Love all explore positive relationships. I've uploaded the grid a few times now, and that's really helpful because it groups the poems by theme. And I'm not saying there's every possible theme on there, but there's a very good chance that what theme comes up will be on that grid. So I would definitely have a look at the poetry grid with the different themes. I put it up just before half term. And then you're choosing your poem. So we're choosing Love After Love. And now this is the really important bit, structuring your answer. So what I want you to do is group your ideas by drafting 3 or 4 signpost sentences. So I want you to write out, Love After Love explores a positive relationship by, and then those signpost sentences are going to guide your answer. I don't want you to just go through the poem, copy out some quotes, do a bit of analysis, and then maybe try and link it at the end. Your whole poem structure needs to be underpinned by an argument that you are creating in relation to the question. So right from the start, you need to know what is your argument, and you do that by looking at that poem, thinking about all the analysis, and then putting that analysis into the context of the question. So I want you to write out your signpost sentences, and they're going to inform your introduction and conclusion and everything you write. So please can you pause the video to write your signpost sentences now. Okay, so this is your annotations. You have even more hopefully written down, but I put them in this PowerPoint just for completeness. And then finally, you're going to write your full answer. So you have the question written down, you have highlighted and annotated it, and as you know, you have 30 minutes. The question is worth 20 marks. I do want you to time yourself because you've already done the planning, we've annotated it, analysed it in great detail before half term, so I reckon you should be able to do it in 30 minutes. And what I would like you to do also is underline your signpost sentences. This is what I'm going to be focusing on when I come to review your work, so I'll be not happy if you haven't made it really clear what they are for me. So make sure you've highlighted or underlined or made them stand out in some way, so at a glance I can see what they are, what your key ideas and what your key arguments are that relate to the question. I also would like you to write success criteria codes in the margin next to each main paragraph. So E, L, F and S and T. So E is for evidence. I recommend having probably 2 quotes per paragraph if you can, at least. Language, talking about the meanings of words, including one-word analysis. Structure, talking about the order of ideas. Microstructure, things like repetition, tricolon listing, exclamatory sentences, and so on. Form is how it's set out, so things like enjambment, stanza length, how it's presented, and T is terminology. So next to each paragraph, you should have 3 main ones. You're going to write those codes in the margin and tick them off. If you're really stuck and you can't use every code for each paragraph, don't worry, but then at least you know some areas that you can focus on going forward. So after you get to the end of each paragraph, please tick off those codes and maybe highlight the ones that you didn't manage to do, so then you know that's a target area going forward. And like I mentioned before, do try and use as many quotes as possible to support your points. Embedded quotes are ideal, and do try and include one word analysis with a reference to word class to boost up your terminology mark. Actually, I'll change the timing slightly because I am getting you to do that additional thing of writing in the marking codes and ticking them off. I will give you an extra 10 minutes. So you can spend 40 minutes on this answer. It may not take you 40 minutes, it may take you less, but you can spend up to 40 minutes on this answer. And the most important thing I would like to stress, this is not a generic analysis of the poem. So I marked 24 answers at Christmas, so did most of the English teachers, and we all discussed our feedback. And the most common finding was that people were writing generic analysis. So even top level answers, people had memorized the analysis from the lessons, which is good as a starting point, but then they were just writing it down. They weren't applying that knowledge to the specific question. So the analogy I would like you to have in mind is your knowledge of the poems, that's like your bricks, okay? That's your bricks and mortar. You can't just lay bricks down. That's not doing anything. You can't just put all the bricks down, put all the mortar on top, and be done with it. You need to use those bricks to create something. So they're your building blocks. You use that knowledge. So I gave you the annotations last lesson. You're using that as a starting point. That analysis is what you use to create something bigger, something better. And that the thing that you're creating is an individual, thoughtful, perceptive, persuasive argument in relation to the question, because that's what's going to get you into the higher marks. If it was just a matter of memorizing the analysis and writing it down, that wouldn't be very challenging, would it? So that's what you're going to do. You're building an argument and demonstrating critical style. So please pause the video for 40 minutes to write your full answer. Do not forget to highlight or underline your signpost sentences so I can see them very easily when I look at your work. So pause the video please and do that now. Okay, and that brings us to the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much for all your hard work. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you do with your answers, and I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow for our live poetry lesson. So thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your day.